The faithful have gathered again. Our crew and our partners. It's a great combination. We have just finished up another, I wouldn't call it a marathon session. I would call it Quicksilver, another buying session at the Fasig-Tipton Gulfstream sale down in the Fort Lauderdale, Hallandale Beach area. It's a very famous sale. It's moved to a number of locations over the past decade, but it's always been high quality and really kind of a boutique sale. I'm joined by our good friend and happy helper and family member extended, of course, David Ingordo, and by Terry Finley, ensconced back in his Bowling Green office, closer to his grandkids than he was for the past couple of days down in Florida. So this is a good thing. It's always a good thing to be close to grandkids. And I'm joined also by Tommy, Tom Bellhouse, Jason Blewett, to talk about the two horses that we bought from this particular sale. One colt by Medaglia d'Oro, see on the left-hand side of your screen here. He is sold out. The other colt by West Coast, there is 20% left of him. And that's it. That's what we bought at this sale, and we've had great support since that time. So I'll let Terry Finley kind of pick up where I'm leaving off and talk a bit about the response and about his overall feel coming out of the sale.
Well, I say thank you to everybody for joining, and thank you to the West Point team. Two beautiful colts. This is a sale you don't really know quite what to expect until you get on the grounds, and David had his team there early and often, and we think that at the end of the day we came away with two beautiful colts, and two colts that we think have the inherent right and the prospect to be in the news 12 months from now, as we get ready for the Derby season and the Derby Trail in 2023.
Thanks very much, Terry. And both colts are going to be going to Shug McGahee. We'll explain that in a bit more detail going forward. But most importantly, Shug brought a lot of firepower and interest in these two particular colts. He was there. He was doing his own evaluations along with our team and wanted and handpicked both of these horses to join his stable. And he's like a kid at Christmas morning. He was smiling, shaking my hand after the two were announced throughout the sale that they were going to be ours. And Shug is a man of very few words. He said, "I can train these. They're good ones if they can run," and we think they can run. David Ingordo, the sale itself was even more boutique than it has ever been, really, in my history with the Fasig-Tipton, now Gulfstream sale. A smaller sale, but the thing that I found interesting and kind of curious, and I hope you can add some greater depth to this, is that there was still deep quality in a 50 or more level hip number sale. What was your take on that?
I was holding the catalog in my hand and looking how thin it was. And when these things come out, this is our guide to what we think is going to be there. And it is never a waste of my time to go to any sale. But I said, this many horses, this is going to be a poor use of our time with Keeneland, racing coming up, and then the real marathon, OBS April. But once I got to looking at the Breeze show, we went back, sat down, if there were 80 horses, or I think it was 75 breezed, we had about 40 on our short list. That's pretty good. That's about what we get on a regular day at a bigger sale. When they breeze 200, we end up with 40, 50 that fit our criteria to go look at. So I was impressed with what we saw on the track. And then when you got back to the barns, it really was a very fine line boutique sale. I mean, the horses we bought, they're good no matter where you're going to go. But I thought they, in this group, were at the top of the list.
We bought two this year. Last year, the sale was, I think, roughly double the number of horses that sold, or a little less than double the number of horses that sold this year. We bought 3 last year. So I think there's some good comparison. We went there not knowing what exactly how it would develop, and we bought 2 excellent prospects. Let's talk about these 2 new members of the 2-year-old class. And we'll go by hip order in the sale. So we'll start with hip number 29, as it turned out. This is a colt by West Coast, who is a freshman sire. He was, of course, the Travers winner, Pennsylvania Derby winner, champion 3-year-old. 20% remains on this colt from West Coast. And he's a stallion that stands, David, at your, in your backyard. And he's starting to come on. I think his average this year for 2-year-olds is like in the $225,000 range from the first 2 sales that have taken place thus far. We love this individual, but how's West Coast doing in general?
He's got what I call like a slow burn going on. And this is something called the Stallion Spectator Ratings. It's a very, very detailed and data-driven report. And they've rated like 10 horses a 9 out of 9. We could have a whole conversation on what goes into this on another Zoom call. And in those 9 out of 9s are horses like Galileo, AP Indy, King Mambo, and 2 unproven horses, Too Darn Hot in Europe and West Coast in the U.S. Wow. There have been, of their 9 out of 9 rating horses, there's only 2 that have been failures, out of that, and that have runners. So this is a pretty robust statistical data-driven analysis, and it brings me to West Coast. I've been very keen to find some runners by him, find some babies. We got outbid on a couple at OBS that were, higher dollar horses. This colt is got a lot of charisma and a lot of oomph to him. Some of the West Coast are a little bit plainer. And I think what they wanted to see is when they got into training, the light's gone on. And that's exactly what's happened at the 2-year-old in sales, which was, my personal prediction was that. That's why we've been, when chasing them. This colt did something very interesting. They can't quite see it, but he bucked and played right before he was set to break off. And he didn't get a total clean run at the pole. And I called this work sneaky good because, they normally get right into it, boom, and they break off. This guy had to regather himself, create new momentum, and he blasted off and galloped out well. He's a big, stretchy, 2-turn looking horse. His time would have been a tick or 2 faster, and he would have cost twice as much if he hadn't have done that. So I'm pretty keen on this horse. I told Shug, I was laughing when we were standing looking at him. My favorite client, me, might want to buy this one, but he went a little bit out of the budget I had for myself there. So, but this is a lovely horse, very charismatic, and I think we might see him towards the end of Saratoga and hopefully be on the Triple Crown Trail for us next year.
I looked at my notes from I looked at this horse probably 5 or 6 times before we bought him. My notes are like big, powerful presence, huge walk, love him. And so this is a nice colt. You mentioned Shug McGahee, David, and he gave the colt a hearty thumbs up. It's worth noting that Shug, personally picked out Saturday's Gulfstream Park Oaks winner, Kathleen O. He went to a 2-year-old in training sale, which is almost like, my grandfather going to Europe for a vacation. Just doesn't happen very often. But Shug went and he bought Kathleen O, who is now top, maybe favorite for the Kentucky Oaks. He bought her in the April sale last year. Tommy Bellhouse, you have watched Shug McGahee, and not from afar because you're a Saratoga guy, a Belmont guy. Seen him in recent years as a part of our team, and he's gone from pretty much being a private trainer for the Phipps family, and he's embraced change, as an older gentleman, really thrived with it. Tom, give me some more perspective on what to expect with a Shug McGahee relationship and our partners.
Well, Jeff, before we go any further, I think you could really adjust to say that Tom Bellhouse and Terry Finley were more like fanboys around Shug McGahee for the last 10 years. Whenever we saw him on the Oklahoma, be like, hey, he said hello to me. So the thought of Shug McGahee being part of our team and as this evolution has happened in his career, I mean, you're talking about a man who's, breaks into training in 79, and then he lands what most of us in the East Coast of the country perceive as the dream job, the Phipps family, which consequently becomes the Phipps-Janney family, and really has been doing that just shy of 40 years. And, and they would train occasionally for some family friends like Claiborne or Joe Allen or, the Phipps, Cynthia Phipps. But really, that was his bread and butter, all those homebreds, those royally bred mares and the offspring that you'd walk down that shed row and just look at those pedigrees and you'd say, this is just incredible. But, like any Hall of Famer, who has 9 Breeders' Cup wins, life changes and he changed with the times. He didn't get left behind. And as partnerships evolved and as maybe the Phipps, when Mr. Phipps died, that the family didn't breed as many horses as they had in the past, he changed with it. And we're just so lucky to look at Kathleen O's performance in the Oaks on Saturday. And I've been fortunate to see all of her races so far. You could just see that development that how many times in our careers when we talk about a horse and managing it, we said, what would Shug do if he trained this horse? And I think we're just absolutely thrilled to have him and to have him part of, to give a blessing on the selection when we were there and bringing in one of his other clients in on this horse with us. So just a phenomenal feeling of excitement and a lot of satisfaction knowing we came away with this colt. And as you said, Jeff, for those who don't know, when you walk into the area where the horses show, he was stabled right near the beginning. So we did look at him at least 4 or 5 times.
Ton of times. Big, powerful, strong presence type of colt. And for those people, the first sale, we bought a fair number of horses, and I'm delighted about it personally. And I think it's going to work out fabulously. Well, we bought a lot of horses for the West Coast. Well, if you're a Saratoga guy, if you're a Gulfstream Park guy, if you're a guy who likes to race up and down the Eastern Seaboard, this is the colt that you need to take a hard look at. And we only got 20% left of him. We bought this one for all the points that you enjoy racing on the East Coast, and something to consider. So that's the West Coast colt going to Shug McGahee. Next up is the Medaglia d'Oro Baffled colt. He's also headed to Shug. The colt sold out, I'd say a couple of hours. There might have been a little bit of trailer into the next day. I'm not sure. It all kind of blended into itself, but he went like hotcakes. He was one of the more high-profile standouts in this boutique sale for good reason. He's a terrific individual, no doubt about that. Strong work, but the pedigree of this guy is, oftentimes we don't spend a lot of time talking about pedigree in 2-year-old and training sales, especially because it's the individual. Well, guess what? You get that plus this particular colt, who's a half brother to Constitution. Medaglia d'Oro, top dog at Jarley's Donnabell Farm in Lexington, sire of sires. He stamps his best offspring. That's been a trade for Medaglia d'Oro. You can see a lot of this particular, colt, Medaglia d'Oro in him. The colt's pedigree, I told you, was eye-popping. It is eye-popping. Half brother to the Florida Derby winner, and now young and not just up and coming, but well-established sire, Constitution, who is arguably the top son of Tapit at stud in America today. David, I've kind of set the table for you. If you would elaborate about the breeze and just the physical attributes on this horse.
This colt, he's a May 11th, so he's a big rangy horse. We had a chance to see him before the breeze, and I was expecting him to breeze well, but he did exceptionally well, given that this is not what this horse is looking to do. That speed is natural. and it should be a good sign once we get them going. Again, Saratoga type horse later this summer, and hopefully be on the Triple Crown Trail with them next year. Just of the expensive horses that we will chase after, this will be one of the better bought ones, I feel like, the whole year.
Could you have seen this horse going 7 figures plus?
Yeah, and I'm sure Terry can add to this a little later, but Bill, Bill is a Phipps through marriage, Bill Farish, and they have a family partnership with his family to buy some colts, and their range was going to be in the 5 to 7 range, sort of on their own. And, obviously West Point, Lane's End, and everybody now Shug, we've got this new boy band power dynamic going on. And, they have the Avengers where I don't know what we are. We're like in sync or something, I guess. But anyway, we've got this going. And between the first captains and the flight lines and all the things we've done here over the last few years, it's not a secret that some of these horses are going to cost at the upper end of our budgeting, but we were able to split this horse between West Point and the Phipps Farish Shug access. And we got him at a pretty fair price, and Elliott Walden Windstar was the underbidder, and he kind of joked with me afterward. He said, I could have gone further, but I saw you guys hooked up, so I just said to hell with it. He kind of gave up. So we appraised this horse at the $1 million to $1.234 million range, and to get him for 900, while it's not nothing, I'm not being flip about the price. He was very well bought for a horse at the upper end of the market, and he could look very cheap when you get this much pedigree, this much physical, this much upside. If he can be like Flightline and First Captain and those kind of horses, we got a big shot to have him stand at the Stallion Barn up here.
Fabulous. Jason, David's alluded to the pedigree, and I've talked about it a bit, but as a as a guy who's watched a few big timers run down the lane, both at Belmont and at Saratoga in your work up in the New York Racing Association, talk a bit about the pedigree and what you took away from being a part of this horse at Gulfstream Park.
Yeah, absolutely, Jeff. He's obviously, this colt, a blue chip prospect all the way, and you get the best of everything on both top and bottom. And in my short time working with Terry and Tommy, you, David, the whole gang on the West Point side of things, and meeting many of the partners, I'd say the one real common thread and theme through this whole thing is a love of the game and a real fandom. And that's something I've been privileged to, on a personal note, having worked in the industry for getting close to a quarter century. And, you go through life, and some people I've come in contact with, they tend to get a little negative, a little sour. That is not obviously a staple of West Point. We've all got that love of the game, and I never lost that, and will never lose that sort of wide-eyed, just kid in a candy store type fandom and passion for the sport. So, to be associated and have a horse like this in the stable, and to have the Phipps stable and Lane's End partnered up, it's an awesome thing. It's hard to articulate quite simply. I won't go on and on and on, which I could, but I truly feel in my almost 30 years of being a fan, Medaglia d'Oro, just as far as raw talent goes, easily a top 10 horse. I know he didn't win the Breeders' Cup Classic, and he came up a little short in the Dubai World Cup, but he obviously won the Travers and was a multiple Grade 1 winner, including the Don Handicap, which is now the Pegasus Dirt. Top 10 raw talent horse, maybe top 5 if I really sat down and made a list. He was that good. And then opening up the distorted humor, baffled side of the female pedigree and looking at Constitution, who's already given us 'tis the law, and Constitution stands for 85,000. I mean, quite simply, we're looking to have an unforgettable career on the racetrack with this guy, and hopefully having a future stallion prospect down the road when his career ends in a few years. And I'll end by saying, Shug, although those pictures maybe tell a different story, I really like those two sort of candid headshots we had of Shug smiling. He's not really a guy. I mean, Shug is Shug. And I don't think anything more really needs to be said. I mean, he's just not a guy that emotes all that much. Having stopped by the barn yesterday at Gulfstream Park, and I missed him, unfortunately. He was already on his way back to New York. But Adam, his assistant down there in Hallandale this winter, became a good buddy of mine. And I was asking Adam what he thought about both horses that we purchased. And Adam was saying Thursday morning when Shug showed up to train, the morning after the Fasig sale, he said he couldn't have been any happier, excited, pumped up, and really loves both of these colts that we are now a proud owner of. So sky's the limit for both, and it's a privilege to be associated with both the Medallia and the West Coast moving forward.
Thank you, Jason. And Terry, you worked the deal. You've got us along with, David's obviously his pull with Bill Farish. You got us involved with Lane's End and with Shug in this particular colt. Did you guys go into this particular sale saying, hey, we got to find something to buy together, or how did that come together?
No, I tell you, Jeff, a couple people have asked me that question, and came through David and Bill. And I remember talking to David probably about 10 minutes before the start of the sale, and we zeroed in on these two colts. And we thought it was going to take some money to buy number 88, and it did. And I agree with David and the rest of the group. I don't think we got him at a deep discount, but we didn't pay a premium for him. And that's what you have to do with a horse like this. But it all came together organically, probably, I don't know, like an hour before this horse went through the ring. And it's a great honor to think that we are in partnership with the Farishes and the Phippses, and to think about the dynasties that they've put together and the history of performance on the racetrack, and also service to the industry, which is very important to all of us. I think when you combine those and the chance to partner with those types of entities and quality people, I think is a grand slam for us and for all of our partners.
Well, that's a wrap in some respects, although we're going to open up the phone lines. We've got about 30 to 40 folks that are out there right now that if they want to ask some questions, in particular about the West Coast, because there's 20% left of him, but also about the Medallia d'Oro colt, because he's fun to talk about as well. Please, hit us up with a chat, a Q&A. You can unmute yourself on the microphone on the app here on Zoom, or you can text any one of us, and we'll get it and pass along the question. Before I go to that, as we're getting everybody set up, and if they want to ask questions, they can go ahead. I should mention we've got a skosh, a really, really tiny bit available on the collected colt that's going to go to Cherie DeVoe from the first sale. And I think we've got like 5 or 10% left of the Practical Joke that's already in training out on the West Coast. I'm going to see him in about a week and a half or about 2 weeks before I head down to the April sale. And looking forward to seeing him and the other West Coast 2-year-olds with John Sadler that Mike Talla and we paired up with. Let's see, thank you very much. James Perry, first one popping in here. James says, I was with the team at the sale, and let me tell you, they are both tremendous colts at great prices. These were the two that the team targeted when the sale began. Both came from the same consignor who knows how to get them ready and run and race. We saw the West Coast several times. That's because James was with me, and I went over and saw him a bunch of times. And he is a superstar in the making, gorgeous specimen, perfect price point. And if you got into the Medallia d'Oro already, hold on for the ride, exclamation point. James, you are very sweet to pass that along. Anybody else for a chat or a question? James was more of a comment. And comments are accepted as well, too. You can say things like, David and Gordo has never looked better.
It's electric razor.
Yeah, I got you. Jeff Lifson got too much sun. Tom Bellhouse's haircut is fantastic. You can say all those things if necessary. I do have a chat question. This is for you, David. It's a follow-up. Why do you think that the sale was high quality when it was a lot fewer horses? ... Saw that some major consigners weren't there? Question mark.
So you have so first, the latter point is correct. The Eddie Woodses, Nick Demerick, several others did not take their horses down there. Why? I'm not sure. My theories, but it didn't matter to us because, we still found the ones we liked. But the people that did bring horses there are the same. They brought the same good ones that would stand out any year, if this makes sense. You're going to have those Eddie Woodses and Demericks bring horses down. They have volume, so they got a volume of nice horses. But you had some smaller consigners bring their top horse down there. So we looked at a Gunrunner colt. It was pretty nice. Didn't jump through all our hoops. We still made $400,000. Some of those horses Kieran Dunn had $1 million for this and $600 for that, and they were nice. They didn't jump through our hoops, but they were nice horses, just not what we wanted to buy. So boiling it all down, did some filler not come down? Did they get lucky at Fasig and just have the better ones show up and the better ones performed, and they got lucky with vetting this year and some things happened? I think that's what happened. Just taking the catalog at face value, they had plenty of pedigrees in there, but we all know that we don't put the tack on the pedigree page. This was one of those nice occurrences where everything lined up, and we picked out two horses that, with Terry's wisdom of having us go to all these sales, work them all like we're going to buy something. We're known to walk away if we don't find something we want or the prices are off. This was one of those opportunities. I think, one of our competing partnerships, won't mention names, they don't go to that sale. I think they're going to regret it when these horses run, and it just won't be the ones we bought run. There'll be some others, I'm sure, come out of there. And so the sale was down on volume, but not on quality. So it made up for it in the quality of horses of what was there. Not talking in a circle, but trying to get it all out there for you.
No, I think that makes total sense. Trey Gordon, who was not there, but was there in spirit because he was texting me almost immediately after we bought both these colts. When we partner with other groups, which he thinks is great, we do too, does the post-sale vet work remain the same as when West Point is the buyer alone? The short answer is absolutely yes. So Dr. Hammock, who does all of our post-sale veterinarian work, was in there in both stalls within 10 minutes or so before we did that live broadcast back at the barn, WPT back at the barn on Zoom. He was in there taking the new x-rays and the new evaluations. I will say this, and Terry, I want you to jump in here. We did more x-rays even before we bought the horses. We had repository x-rays, but we took some, based on Dr. Latson and David's recommendations, we took x-rays even prior to buying these horses, plus the post-sale x-rays. And what was your thinking there?
Yeah. Well, I think it goes without saying, the more you can do, the better shot that you have of being successful on the racetrack. And that's really the key. And what is behind all the work that we do before and after these sales. I still find it, I'm stunned that we're one of the few owners or entities that do post-sale x-rays. And to give you a little inside baseball, the rules stipulate that you have to have the set of x-rays has to be after the breeze, right? So it can't be before the breeze for, the reasons that are obvious. They can chip or they can injure themselves in the breeze. And if the x-rays, if they're done before, they represent pre-sale or pre-breeze. So I think the major takeaway there is that that you have a lot of horses that have to get x-rayed in a fairly short period of time. Now, this sale wasn't as bad as, say, the March or the April sale up at OBS. But the point being that oftentimes the x-rays are done by vet techs and or very young vets. So not to say they're doing anything untoward, it just that when a technician or a vet, when they're doing things on a time basis and they're rushed, obviously they have a bigger chance to miss something or to get an angle that's not exactly indicative of the situation. So that is a situation that we're faced. And, in addition to the pre-sale additional x-rays and the post-sale x-rays, we're also doing a lot more scanning. So David will see a tendon or a suspensory that he doesn't like. We'll bring in another vet and we'll scan. And the other thing we've also added this year is in the post-sale x-rays, we're x-raying all four of their feet. That's something we had never done before, but we think it's the last part of a really clear and a total package and a total view that we get of these horses after the sale, and that is done by our veterinarians, which I think is key.
Thanks, Terry. Trying to see if I've got, and thank you, Trey, for the question.
Good question.
Before I get into any other questions, and people, you can jump in if you want. David, that's a double-edged sword. I mean, you lose out on horses that you like at the last moment sometimes, just because you've done additional work.
It's funny. I had a situation at the sale, and I'll tell you about it just educationally. We're all learning something. There was a horse we love. I won't say the hip number. It was a filly. And Keith did his physical on her. We took some re-x-rays of a knee. The horse was lame when he jogged her in the morning. The x-ray wasn't very good. And a different vet, so we struck it right off. It was right off the list, no problem. We talked about her for a few minutes because we all liked her. It's sad because you've found this horse. You're like, okay, no whammies. I want to buy this horse. And, if they don't vet for our purposes, the word doesn't vet is a little unfair, but they don't vet for us. I always add that caveat at the end. That horse doesn't vet for me, doesn't work for my program, doesn't work for my clients. Well, a separate vet vetted this horse, and a guy asked me if I'd look at it for him. I said, I don't need to look at it. I showed him my vet work. This horse had magically improved by the afternoon and sold for a very decent amount of money. And this person called me up. So, well, my vet must have missed it. I said, no, I don't think your vet missed it. I think the veterinary bunny, Easter bunny came by and probably helped that horse a little bit. Not saying the horse won't be fine, but it didn't work for us. Your guy was unfortunate there. And I saved that guy several $100,000 by doing that. We saved the West Point buying team with Dr. Latson at the helm, Dr. Hammock after the fact when we do the post-sale checking. I've become a real believer in doing some of these things because as disappointing as it is to not get this horse, it's better than buying it and, having to give it away, down the line because of issues that are going to make it not do the job we need it to do. So it's a real good wrinkle that Terry's added in and Aaron is refined. And I think that it's one of the advantages because I'm shocked too, to be honest with you, not more people do it. It's something I've added personally into a few things I'll do now is check. I might just check knees and ankles or check something odd at the end, but it's a big deal because it's cheap insurance. We've saved probably a couple of $1 million on horses we've turned back over the last 4 or 5 sales, and it's all fairly honest mistakes or something was not totally right. But credit to Terry, he's saving the partners money the way he's doing that.
Well, I wanted to end on that note because that is an exhaustive process that we do. You know, down the line, horses are horses, and they have their physical setbacks as they begin to train or they in the middle of their career. But at least at the front end, we're trying to do our best to prevent that. We are concluded with our show for 1 o'clock this afternoon Eastern Daylight Time, talking about the 2 horses we bought at the Fasig-Tipton Gulfstream Park sale. We had, close to 30 to 40 people that were on the call, so that was tremendous. Thank you. If you have any more questions and you're a little shy, just text Tommy or Jason or me or Terry with your questions especially about the West Coast Colt. Like I said, 20% left on him. And in the meantime, we've got a big weekend ahead at Keeneland. Will you still be in town, David, or are you going to be cruising out for the sale at that point?
I want to see racing Friday and Saturday, but we have a 5 a.m. A bunch of us got together and chartered a plane, which was actually cheaper than flying to Gainesville, believe it or not. So we can be to Ocala by 7 a.m. and in our post positions there by 7:30 to start the Bree show at 8. So I'm going to be here for a little while, and then I'll have to let you guys handle it for me till I see your smiling faces down in Ocala.
The beat goes on, as they say. The April sale at the end of the month is our next on the agenda. In the meantime, we've got a little bit up to about 20% on the West Coast on those 3 colts, the Practical Joke, the Collected, and the West Coast. We want to thank everybody again in great sincerity for jumping in as quickly as you've done on a number of these, 12 2-year-olds that we purchased up to this point. I want to thank you, Tommy Bellhouse, you, Jason Blewett, you, Terry Finley, and of course, you, David Ingordo, and thank the behind-the-scenes smiling faces of Jeff Lowe and Aaron Birkenauer, and say, namaste. Namaste to everybody. We appreciate your time, and we'll talk soon. Take care.
Everyone.